It was supposed to be the perfect wedding day: white chairs, wildflowers, and vows beneath an old oak tree. But just hours before the ceremony, an HOA president with a clipboard and a power complex tried to shut it all down. What followed wasn't just a battle over rules, it was a fight for family, freedom, and the moment that would bring a whole community together. The morning sun had just touched the tops of the hills when I stepped out onto the family ranch. The air was crisp, filled with the scent of wildflowers, fresh-cut grass, and anticipation. This was the day my daughter Jess would get married, under the same oak tree my wife and I had said our vows under 30 years ago. That tree had watched over 3 generations of our family, and today, it would see a fourth begin. We had prepared everything. White folding chairs were lined up in perfect symmetry beneath strands of fairy lights. The old barn had been swept clean and decorated with sunflowers and burlap ribbons. It was rustic and simple, just like Jess wanted. Guests would be arriving in a few hours, and I was just adjusting the archway when I heard a familiar sound that instantly soured the air. Heels crunching over gravel. Karen Dalton, clipboard in hand, HOA president from a development half a mile away. Her neighborhood backed up to a portion of our land, and while technically outside her jurisdiction, Karen treated our ranch like it was her personal fiefdom. She wore authority like armor and used rules like weapons. "Good morning," she said, though her tone was anything but. "I see you've erected several unauthorized temporary structures." I blinked at her. "It's a wedding, Karen. For one day." Section 14C of the HOA Guidelines. She continued, flipping through her binder. "Prohibits unapproved constructions that may affect the aesthetic cohesion of the community." I looked around at the wildflowers, dirt paths, and hills beyond. There was no community for at least a quarter mile, just our land. "I'm going to issue a formal violation," she said, placing a notice on the drink station like it was a parking ticket. "Please be aware that further non-compliance may result in enforcement measures." She turned and walked away, heels sinking into the earth with every step. I didn't think she'd actually do anything. I assumed it was a bluff, an empty display of control. I was wrong. Not 20 minutes later, my brother came running from the front entrance. "She locked the gate," he shouted. Sure enough, Karen had padlocked the main entrance to our property, claiming we were endangering the community by bringing in excessive traffic on unprotected roadways. Guests were starting to arrive, dressed in their Sunday best. They were now parking along the shoulder, some hiking through ditches to reach us. That was the moment something shifted in me. I wasn't going to let a petty bureaucrat ruin my daughter's wedding. I got the bolt cutters from the barn, walked up to the gate, and cut the lock without a word. Just as we opened the gate, a golf cart came screeching down the dirt road. It was Trevor, one of Karen's so-called community safety volunteers. He pulled the cart in front of the gate and folded his arms across his chest. "No one enters without a parking pass," he said with a smug smile. "There's no such thing." I said, "There is now," he replied. Jess's maid of honor, God bless her, pulled out her phone and said, "Either you move that cart or I call the sheriff and report illegal obstruction of private property." Trevor looked around. Guests were staring. Some were filming. He drove off without another word. I thought we were done, but an hour before the ceremony, Karen came back, this time with 2 HOA board members in tow. She shoved a cease and desist letter into my hands, citing nuisance behavior and violation of community order. My hands shook, not with fear, but with rage. I looked her dead in the eye, crumpled the paper slowly, and dropped it into the trash. "This wedding is happening," I said. The crowd erupted in applause, but I knew it wasn't over. Karen looked around, her face turning crimson. She was losing control, and she hated that more than anything. Then something happened that shifted the air in a way I'll never forget. A sheriff's SUV pulled up the drive. Doors opened, and out stepped Sheriff Maddie Cross, Jess's best friend since childhood. She approached, badge gleaming in the afternoon sun, the perfect picture of calm authority. She nodded to me, then turned to Karen. "Ma'am," she said, You are dangerously close to criminal trespassing. This is private property. You have no legal authority here. Karen opened her mouth to protest, but Maddie cut her off. This is a family event, a lawful, peaceful gathering. Any further interference will be considered harassment. Karen backed away slowly, her voice finally silent. The wedding went on. Jess walked down the aisle with her mother at her side. Vows were exchanged under that same oak tree. Laughter echoed off the barn walls during dinner. People danced until the stars came out. And somewhere in the middle of it all, I caught Karen watching from the edge of the road, standing alone. But the story didn't end that night. Over the next few weeks, Karen filed complaint after complaint, noise violations, unapproved gatherings, even a claim about livestock wandering onto common land, which was actually a goat named Clyde, who never left the barn. But this time, the neighborhood had had enough. Neighbors who had once feared Karen's wrath began to speak up. They formed a committee. They looked into finances, and what they found cracked the whole thing wide open. Karen had been using HOA funds for community site inspections that were actually personal trips, lavish hotels, rental cars, expensive meals, all masked as HOA business. The evidence was undeniable. Within 2 months, Karen was removed from her post. An interim board was elected. Guidelines were reviewed. The new leadership focused on support and collaboration, not punishment and control. The wedding, our wedding, became a symbol. The day we stood up, the day a community remembered what it means to belong not to rules, but to each other. And on quiet mornings, I still walk the ranch, past the oak tree, past the barn. I remember Jess's smile. I remember Maddie's calm strength. I remember a crowd of neighbors who chose courage over compliance. Karen tried to control us with paper and policy. But love real, stubborn, enduring love proved stronger than any rule book.